Welcome to Season 9 of the RAG Podcast, the show where I speak with recruitment founders all over the world who are willing to share the truth behind building and running a profitable recruitment agency. Not just the headline numbers, but the real stories, the wins, the mistakes, the sacrifices, and the lessons that come with growth. So this season is more than just turnover or headcount. It's about profitability and the balance it takes to make a business really work for your life. Every week, an authentic story from a real founder who's been there and done it and wants to tell you how. So whether you're scaling your agency right now or you're thinking about launching a recruitment company and wondering how you're going to do it, the RAG Podcast will give you the insights and the inspiration you need every single week. Nick Hoadley is the founder of Insurance Search, a specialist exec search practice operating within the global insurance market. This guy never worked in recruitment before, was actually an insurance broker who spotted a gap and just over 9 years ago decided to quit his job and start a recruitment business, having never done a day for another agency. In the last 9 years, he's gone from 100% contingent to 100% retained. He went from 100% solo to building a team. He's maxed out a 7-figure practice at over 60% profit margins, and now he's expanding into the US partner model, which means he has got no overheads, essentially, and can only win based on the performance of the partners he's hiring over there. In this episode, we talk about his journey from non-recruiter to founder to contingent to retained. We talk about the podcast and the impact that's had on his exec search practice all over the world. We talk about his mindset for building alternative services and for scaling in an ultra-modern way. This guy operates now internationally at over 50% profit margins, and he's trying to do two things: grow the business and retain profit, which is ultimately the hardest thing to do in our industry. You're going to love this one. Let's get into it. Nick, welcome to the show.
Cheers, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, mate. Pleasure. Like I say, we've just been chatting off air and it felt like we already started the show, so we might have to repeat some of this stuff. But mate, it's good to have you on. I think I met you 5 years ago-ish.
Yeah,
I think we started talking around the COVID time.
Yeah, during the pandemic.
Yeah, I don't know where it came from. I think we just interacted on LinkedIn, and I've kept an eye on what you've been up to, and I've always enjoyed your content, and the podcast that you've been putting out you've been super consistent. You've been one of the first that I see doing this kind of stuff in the space, which is great. Just turned 40 as well. Congratulations.
40 and falling apart now.
We're the same school year. I'm 5th of August. What were you, 3rd of September or something?
That's it. Yeah. It's almost a year apart, the same school.
You're literally, my mate the oldest one of my group turned 40 yesterday, and we all, he was getting all the messages. And I remember being like 17 and hating him because he was already 18. And he was like, he got everything sooner than me, and he looks younger than any of us. He's the youngest looking one out of all of us. But I remember thinking, shit, I remember we waited till my 17th birthday to go on our lads' holiday because it was you had to be 17. So 5th of August, 2003, never forget. Now when you're turning 30 and 40, I'm quite happy I'm the young one. I'm like, I've got a year yet.
Yeah, got a year. You can go to all these sportive birthdays, see what they're all about, and then plan your own.
Are you feeling any different?
Yeah, I feel like an adult, I think, finally. I think across the time, and you've had this starting your business, but I always felt like a young up-and-coming sort of entrepreneur and business owner, and you sort of get to 40, you're like, right now I'm an adult, people are going to take me a bit more seriously now, so we'll see if that's the case.
Do you know, when I looked at your business before this call, I was like, God, 9.5 years he's been running it, and then I've just realised I'm 8.5 years. Mine was basically, we quit January 17, you started August 16. It's pretty much the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking you're like a veteran in the game, and I'm like, no, we're both. And like, here's a question. We're totally off topic. We'll get into the show in a minute, but like, are you where you thought you'd be 10 years later? Pretty much.
I thought I would have sold my business after 5 years for 10 million exit. That was the plan.
Yeah. Me and Amma said financial freedom at 40 was like the goal. We didn't know what that was, but we're like, we're not going to work at 40. We're going to be done. Didn't quite work out, but we're on a good trajectory anyway. All right, mate. Well, look, let's get into it. So in terms of your introduction, I've done you I always do a loose one. For anyone who's never heard of you, just give us the bird's eye view of you and the business. How many people, what you do, none of the detail. We'll go into that.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, so I founded and run a business called Insurance Search. So as the name suggests, we're an executive search practice for the insurance industry. Operate here in the UK, right across the US and in Bermuda. Executive search, board search, human capital research, and building communities and consultative solutions really for our clients, which are insurance companies, brokers, MGAs, etc. in the insurance sector.
Yeah. And I actually understand what you're talking about because of my background. I was a recruiter in the insurance market. So we swapped, didn't we? In terms of what we were up to. But you started a recruitment. So you started your own business in recruitment without ever working in recruitment, or you left insurance and joined someone else to do it?
Yeah, so I was working at an insurance firm, and we had a real challenge actually as a business. We were trying to grow organically, but it was really difficult to hire and attract good producers, which we would say are growth sales leaders. And the challenge I had, I engaged with a lot of different recruitment agencies and firms. Challenge I had had a lot of conversations with recruiters. You spend a lot of time with them, and then I just wouldn't hear anything back, or I'd get a couple of CVs and it'd be like someone worked in insurance 25 years ago and they were like putting them forward for a job now. And it was just really difficult to get good, consistent quality candidates through. So much so that actually our business had to go through acquisition as the strategy for growth rather than organic. And
insurers love an acquisition though, don't they?
Yeah, well, that's it, exactly. And part of that challenge is getting the talent, especially, these days it's a real issue. So I just thought there was a better way of doing it. I could see what a good broker looked like. I could see what a good underwriter looked like. I had a lot of contacts in the industry. And so really I launched the business with a way of matchmaking good quality people with good quality businesses, and, thought recruitment as simple as that. And in a way it is actually. I think sometimes we do overcomplicate things, but across the years I sort of cut my teeth in different types of recruiting and really honed those skills and build up those skills, and then started to build the business really post-pandemic. So I think we were about 4 years in at the time, and we really decided at that point that that's where we wanted to try and grow and really develop into a high quality executive search practice.
So if we go back to that 2016 time then, so you must have been what, 20, were you 30, 31-ish, 30, 31?
Yeah, I just turned 30, yeah.
Yeah, so pivotal time in your life. I always look at it like your 20s you work for somebody else. Maybe your 30s you take a risk on yourself, right? That's kind of how I looked at it, and we were 30 when we started at Oxo. What was it's quite a big risk to start a business you don't know. So like, what was your plan? Like, did you have like a backup plan? Were you 100% sure that you knew enough about recruitment to do this? Like, what was going on in your head?
Yeah, looking back on it, it was a huge risk. But I think at the time, and when you're in those heady days of youth, you're just going for it. I took a calculated risk. I knew some people who were working for recruitment companies doing well, knew the sort of figures they were doing. I knew that I had access to clients straight away. And I think that's one of the hardest things about setting up a business. So my company that I work for, they backed me straight away. And so I became their recruitment agency of choice. So straight away I had clients with active positions.
Did they not say like, Nick, you've never done this? Did they never question that you didn't actually know recruitment, or had you done internal recruitment enough that they were like, oh, he'll be fine?
Yeah, I mean, I just said to them, look, I know what a good broker looks like. I've been sitting at the other side of the desk when the recruiters been sitting in the CVs and judging, what good looks like. So I can just do that same process now and then advise you who to see. But I'm just going to be doing the sourcing myself. I suppose back in those days, the sourcing was mixed and varied, but I had contacts that I could just call up that, weren't on job boards. They weren't probably even on LinkedIn either. It was just a case game. I know you through our contacts, you're really good. Like, you should come and join this firm. And really took it from there. I mean, don't get me wrong. I then did courses. I was just like a real student of learning. It probably took me best part of a year when I decided to launch the business of doing all my background checking while I was still employed at this company, working out how I was going to do it all, reading the interview notes that the recruiters were sending across with their profiles. I also invested some money with a firm who actually, I think they're called like Recruitment in a Box. Really great guy called Jonathan Margrave, who you might have met actually across your time, but he basically had this like one-stop solution for setting up a recruitment business. It was like website, terms and conditions, that type of thing. And that was great. That's all I needed. And then I just knew how to matchmake and bring in good quality people. So it actually wasn't as big a risk as you might think. I always thought, like, if this doesn't work out 12 months in, I'll go back to insurance. There's a dearth of talent. Should be able to get a job. I haven't burnt
that was exactly my mindset.
Yeah.
In my so slightly different, obviously. I'd been playing around with LinkedIn and social media, and I felt like I wasn't an expert, but I felt like I knew more than the industry knew. But I knew the industry problems, and I was like, I could get access to clients pretty quick. I knew enough people, same sort of thing. And I thought, I've got 6 months non-compete anyway. So like the Lloyd's market, I used to run around underwriters and brokers moving. I never worked with the business. It was projects and change, right? But I was probably going to get caught in Leadenhall market in the first 6 months anyway, speaking to someone I shouldn't. So I thought, if I spend 6 months doing this, completely different focus, if it doesn't work out, I'll just go back to what I know and I'll be fine. And I never went back, which I guess explains that it worked. How long did it take for you to get to a point where you felt like it was the right decision?
I mean, there was a couple of turning points. I think first placement, so to actually see that full life cycle of selecting someone, training them for their interviews, prepping them, briefing clients, debriefing clients, managing the whole offer process, and then for them to accept and join and start. I think it was at that stage I thought, right, this is replicable. I can do all of those stages, no problem at all. I think then the next point actually for me was probably pandemic, actually, where up to that point we'd been doing a lot of work in UK, working with brokers, working with underwriters. Then we got asked to do more and more in London with some really big firms in the city. And that work was all going really well. We were really crushing it. So much so that they started asking us to work in New York and Boston, actually. So working for these big companies. And they said, look, can you help us out over there? We've got some challenges as well. When we then started making placements stateside and realizing that we had a really good process and a really good model, we knew that was replicable. We knew with our insurance experience and knowledge that we could really identify what good looks like. We could interview, make sure that clients were really happy with the service that we were providing. I think at that point that's when we knew, right, this is something good and something we can really build upon.
So when you set out the business in the early days, what was the goal? Other than fill jobs and, work for yourself and do what you thought was not done very well by current suppliers, was there a business goal attached? I know we said like sell your business, but like, was there a model in your mind of scale or what? How did you see it?
I was actually interviewing someone on our podcast earlier today, and it was interesting. I asked him quite a similar question, and I've got quite a similar answer, which is that there's opportunities along the way, and just following the opportunities in terms of what you want to do professionally or what you want to do personally, and following the things that make you happy and that you're good at doing. And I went into it certainly without big grandeur of we're going to sell and exit, without saying we're going to get to a certain size, but it was just, am I enjoying it? Am I doing good work for our clients? Are we doing good work for our candidates? And really seeing where it takes us. And where we are now as a business where, all of our work is at the executive level or board level. It's all retained work. We're doing human capital research projects all across the world. It's so much different. The podcast as well. Some of the people I've interviewed on that, he said to me day one, you'd be doing all of that. I would never have believed you at all. So it's just been an evolving process. And it's only really now that we've built a practice where we start thinking, all right, what is that big next stage? Is that growth or is it, profitability? And I know that's one of the things for us to talk about today. How do you scale in a profitable way? You can build a nice profitable practice, which we've done, provide high quality service, but scaling and keeping the profitability and that high quality service, is a real challenge for the industry, and it's one that we're really looking at the moment.
So if we go back to your days of on your own, how long did it take you to start bringing in people around you?
I think it was about 3 years. We first dabbled with VAs and PAs. So quickly I was trying to outsource things, and I had a couple of VAs, and then I had a PA, which was great. Just scheduling client calls, scheduling candidate calls, scheduling interviews. And then I started building a team when I moved down here to Sussex. So we had a team of 4 of us, I think, in the office. Recruited some really good local talent, good sort of sales talent. But we hit the pandemic 2020, and I remember 2020 was going to be the year. Sure, you can remember we had all these issues going on with Brexit and everything like that for about 18 months before, and it's just everything was on hold until that was getting resolved. And I think 2020, everyone was like, right, this is going to be the year. And then February, March came along, and we went into lockdown. So we certainly had to pivot, but it was a great time for me to really reflect on what I wanted to do and what I wanted the business to look like.
So what did you determine at that point?
Yeah, so it was really evaluating that simple question. What do I enjoy doing personally? What do I enjoy doing in the business? What's working well? For me, I was building great relationships with senior people, really providing value at that level, and really enjoyed working at that level. I really enjoy interviewing people who have been super successful, finding out about what's made them a success, what advice they have for other people, and whether that's candidates or through our podcast, really telling that story. So for me, it was about taking a reflection, saying, what do I want to be doing day in, day out in the business? Do I want to have a team of, junior people that I want to be training, or do I want to be working with the highest quality clients and the highest quality stakeholders? And it was the latter for me. So
did you have an office of a few juniors at that point where you had to reevaluate?
Yeah. And it was a real challenge, but it was a time to reflect. Do we want to be a contingent recruitment agency doing a lot of high volume business, which is a great model and it's a great business, or do we want to be niche and a retained executive search consultancy? And at the time, we were dabbling in both. I was doing the exec search work and the senior leadership, and then I had the team doing a lot of junior work. And I don't mean you can spin both plates at the same time, or certainly I was struggling to anyway. So
the thing is, a lot of people, when they know that opportunity is there, it's hard to give it away. So if they, like you say, if you're dabbling in exec search, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and you've already got contingent work coming for the team below, because I say this all the time, very similar to what you just said, how you want to play and how you want to spend your day is really important. But most people are blinded by, but I'm already getting that, and that's making X, and they don't even like it, they don't even want it, but they just can't say no to something that is already there, and they just focus on what they're losing rather than what they're gaining. So how did you analyze and make a decision, and what did you actually do?
Yeah, the big thing was realizing that I wanted to work with senior people and high quality work. And I very much set out the business with the fact of, right, we're not going to do any cold calling. We're not going to talk about billings in front of clients. We are going to be that true consultant and that trusted advisor. And I see a lot of talk about that in the recruitment industry. And then you'll see people posting about how much fees they've done and this and that. And you're like, well, if your clients are seeing these types of things, it's just not a great reflection. And it got to the point in that pandemic where we thought, right, there's a real opportunity here to really position ourselves as thought leaders in the industry. We've got some great relationships. We're doing high quality work. Let's stick with that, and let's push back against some of that work where you just treat it like another vendor, or we've all had those clients, right? They sort of chuck you a bit of meat. They might have 4 or 5 recruiters working on it. It's just a fight to the death to get a candidate for the door. that's absolutely fine for some business models, but I don't think you can do both at the same time. Be that high quality consultative advisor and also be doing that work as well. So yeah, it was very much a decision we took then. I realized I wanted to do more work in the US. Love the market over there, the people, the cultural entrepreneurship over there. I found really, really interesting. Still do a lot of work in the London market. I mean, it's the best insurance market globally, but it's different culture and it's great to work sort of both sides of the pond. So we just had a vision, right? We want to work senior level. We want to work US. We now work in Bermuda as well, which is a nice place to work. How are we going to do that? And for me, I'd been planning this podcast for 2 years, but hadn't got around to it because it was just, spinning all the plates on the contingency wheel and, with the team we had. So we launched the podcast and we said, right, we're just going to interview all our clients, the CEO or the very senior people that we can interview and position ourselves as thought leaders. And by interviewing these people, we just learned so much. They gave so much. Amazing how many of these leaders are incredibly humble and incredibly generous with their time. And we use that as a springboard to position ourselves as executive search. And
was the business called Insurance Search at the time?
Yeah, I think I think we just changed the name. So we started out as Assured Legal Recruitment.
Wow.
My background before my insurance days was as a lawyer, so trained as a lawyer. So we were doing both. We were doing legal recruitment and insurance recruitment at the same time. All on a sort of contingency basis. And
I'm like, Insurance Search, it does sound very exec search, doesn't it? It's a perfect name to position yourself in that.
Yeah.
In that new. And did you have to let them guys go that were the juniors doing the contingency, or did you restructure what they did?
Yeah, I had to let a couple of people go, and then I retained one of our team, and she was great, and she had so much ambition that she could she could really step up. It is a challenge though, for sure. I mean, we're now at a stage as a business where we work internationally. We work with some really great clients, senior level work, and we've got a great practice. But the challenge and the sort of the thesis in the market for executive search firms is, how do you turn a practice into a scalable business? And how do you do that? How do you do that in a profitable way? And that's the challenge that we've got. So we're looking at, right, how do we give our clients so much value that actually we don't need large scale of clients? How much resource can we give to them, and how much information and insights can we give to them that will truly add value? And we do things like human capital research and projects like that, which our clients turn around and said, actually, that's much more valuable than hiring an executive. This is going to help us with our roadmap for the next 3 years. Way more valuable than just a simple transaction. So part of it for us is getting as close to the clients as possible and doing, a great service and increasing the services that we can offer. And then the second part of that is, right, how do we grow team members in a profitable way as well? And, it's a big challenge.
So when you went into exec search, what was the major difference like? Because I think a lot of people don't really know the difference. I've personally never worked in exec search myself. I did senior interim contract work. Some of the roles were £1,500 a day, and they were, I always think the service I provided was high quality, and I was very consultative. Even though I was quick in the nature I had to work, I was very deep and thorough. But what would you say is the biggest difference when you stepping up, like process wise, sales wise, the whole thing?
Process wise, I'd say the big difference is the time commitment that you can give to each role. So our team members, they might work on 2 roles at a time for a 4 to 6 week period, as opposed to contingent. You probably need to be working 10 to 15 roles. I think on the contingent side of things, you just have to prioritize what's gonna make placements and how that's gonna help the clients as quickly as possible. And I think that was the challenge actually that I had when I was sitting at the insurance broker. I'd get these guys be calling me, 5-6 times a month trying to get business from us. We'd sit down with them for an hour, explain to me exactly what we want, then we'd never hear from them again. And that was just like so frustrating. And that's always a story I go back to now. So even with our team now, if we got challenging search on, the client would like to know why it's a challenge, maybe what are the roadblocks and how we can come to a solution. Not the case of a contingent, which is often the case is, the recruiter's a bit too embarrassed to say, look, I've only got one candidate or I don't have any candidates, that these are the issues. The clients are used to getting ghosted, and that just doesn't help anybody at all. So really, by working on a retained basis, you're going to get paid for the work. You can go really deep. You can make sure you map out the full market, make sure you've got every single candidate on there who's got the skills and experience that the client's looking for. And then you can robustly interview those candidates against the job spec. You're not competing with someone else who you think, gosh, they might send in their CV ahead of time. So I'm just going to have a quick 20-minute call and get that CV across. Right, we're going to be submitting the shortlist in 6 weeks' time. So we can go really deep. We can have X amount of interviews with people. Because you're working at senior level, when you're phoning up CEOs, they're often not available to speak for a week or 2 weeks. They're successful. They've got their head down. They're not on LinkedIn all day. They're not on job boards. So it's our job to find them, to track them down, to come up with a compelling message, and then to really vet them and interview them, and you use lots of different tools to do that, so that the client knows, right, in 6 weeks' time, I'm going to have high quality shortlist of candidates, highly vetted, and we can crack on with the interview process. I think that's the key difference. And
how did you move into selling that? Did you just learn through osmosis, or was it did you go out and buy a course and learn from somebody who's done it? Like, how did you know how to position that service correctly?
To start with, it was just supply and demand. So especially in the US, I think our first couple of retained clients, they just said to us, oh, assume you're retained and assume your fee is this. And it was like way higher than our fee normally is. And we weren't working retained, but we took it. And I think we got up to about 50% of our work was retained then at that point. And we were doing better work as a result. And so we wanted to scale that further. So I went on a training course with Retrained Search. So Louise Arthur, I'm sure a lot of listeners know Louise. Yeah, absolutely fabulous course. Really, really great course. And it actually helped to sell Retain. So I think at the time we knew it was a better solution for a lot of our clients, but it was about how could we communicate that message to them, where it's not just say, look, pay us up front and pay us more money. What are you actually going to get for that process? And she was fantastic.
Is there a difference though in, I guess, going into what would have been a contingent scenario and pitching a retainer versus going to what would already be a retained scenario and competing with exec search competition like Spencer Stewart or Heidrick and Struggles or whatever? Like, did you see both of those experiences, or was it more turning your current contingent client base or opportunities into retain?
Yeah, a bit of both for sure. I think it's a challenging conversation to have with your clients to say, we've been working to a certain structure, but we need to move it to a different structure, which is going to be of benefit for you. And certainly for some of those, we had to test it out, and we had to be flexible and say, that this is going to work in a changing environment. We now have it very regularly where we're competing against the Shrek firms, and the sales process is done at the outset. So we have to go in, we'll prepare a pitch and a presentation as to why they should use us against one of these other major players in the market. So the sales side is really done at that outset, and once you've done that sale and secured that work, you can then really be consultative and put that high value to it. I think on the contingent side of things, there is an element of sale at the beginning for a client to want to use you and trust you and work with you. But at the end of the day, there's no real commitment either way. And so, either side can walk away, and it's not until you actually close the deal, that you're going to get paid, and that you've actually won the work. So there's different parts to the sales process, which I say are different and probably require different skills.
What can you remember when you first went up against other exec search firms with a proper track record, and how you managed that?
Yeah, and I think that is just really providing excellent quality for clients and building up case studies. The first thing that PE firms ask, or the big PLC insurance company was asking, what's your track record? And you had to demonstrate that. It's not a case of going in and saying, look, I'll find you a candidate and give me a couple of weeks and I'll come back with a couple of people. You've got to really demonstrate that to them, because these positions, have a real major impact on the business. And, the safe option for them is to go with the Shrek firms, with the large global executive search players. But when you have a process which is really resilient, when you've got high quality people doing the interviewing, and then just our knowledge of the industry itself, we can really position ourselves as specialists, and we can compete against those guys.
And I suppose more than any other market, it's almost guaranteed that your candidate work should lay foundations for client work, because when you're operating at the board level, C level, these guys are going to be coming back to you, right, with opportunity, and they're going to be involved in hiring other executives of a senior level. So, you really can demonstrate a lot of credibility and process. The better you do with each candidate, the more future you've got in from a client perspective, I'd imagine.
But like placements and interview process is so important, and especially there's a lot of great quality candidates who don't get the job for whatever reason it might be. The slate of candidates is really, really high. The challenge sometimes, actually, Sean, is when we get executives approach us who are maybe between roles and say, look, can you help me get a role? And they see a recruitment business as someone who can work with them to place them. That's often not the case, because our clients are retaining us on certain projects. It's not a case of sort of chucking their CV around the market. So
yours is a job-driven role, not a candidate-driven role, right? So
absolutely, we're representing the clients, the businesses, as opposed to the candidates. For sure.
So how did that all post-COVID? You let go of some of those guys. You keep all the one. You're going all in. You've got the podcast now. Your exec search. Talk us through the next stage, because this is where the US market, I believe, starts to take shape.
Yeah. So I started traveling more across the States. I actually found out that there was more of a challenge over there in terms of the brokerage market having to acquire other businesses in order to grow. And a lot of them had PE backed. They'd had major investment, and they had big growth targets. And again, they had challenges finding search firms, finding recruitment firms who could deliver candidates on a consistent quality basis. So we quickly made some inroads there, right across the US. And then for me, it was a case of saying, look, do I want this just to be a one-man band, me and my assistant, or do we want to grow? And I think it was actually a rec called me out of the blue and said, look, I've got a couple of people in your area, really high quality, experienced people I'm working with. Would you be up for interviewing them? And I did. They're two people who still work with me now. Great integrity, a lot of experience, and exactly the right people that I can put in front of those types of clients. Those guys don't grow on trees. So maybe I was in the right place at the right time. But by moving our delivery capability away from myself, that's then enabled me to go out, do a lot more client work, and build a lot more relationships there. Where when it's just your own desk and you're getting clients and you're getting candidates, it's harder to build a business at the same time there. And that was probably the key point when I hired our head of delivery. We've now got a research team as well. When I hired those guys, it was just like a huge weight off my back. I'm quite entrepreneurial by nature. I'm looking to build a sustainable and a much larger practice. Been building those foundations over the years. And the delivery side of things, if you're delivering on the projects that you're mandated on, it just takes up so much of your bandwidth, and it's really difficult to do. So that was...
So going back to what we said before about the ability to win business based on how good you are with candidates, if you are essentially offloading that side of the job, how does that affect then you've got to ensure the quality is as good as you, but then how does that affect your ability to do BD through that process? Or do you keep hold of a couple of roles always to keep yourself honest and fresh and stay in the game?
That's such a great question. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges actually for solopreneurs, for executive search consultant is to pass that work, to be able to trust the team to look after that work and do it better than you would do it. And for a mixture of training, but also that hiring the right people, I got to that stage probably about 2.5 years ago where I realized actually my delivery team's better than me now. These guys are going to do a better job than I would do doing this. I can really focus my game on being a consultant, providing value and building up extra forms of value for our clients as well. So, now we've got a board club, which has got 40 PLC insurance company board directors in a forum who meet every 2 weeks. We've got a HR exec club, which is a hands-on peer-to-peer group of CHRAs in the insurance industry. And we've got a research division. So we're providing research projects to our clients on information that will help, that they can use to help them grow their organizations. And if I was still on the tools doing the delivery, clients, candidates, there's just no way you'd be able to build some of these initiatives and foundations for a larger organization that we're looking to build.
Okay, I got you. But I guess the question is, did you have to keep hold of some for a while? And then was there a day where you said, yeah, that is it. I'm actually not going to I'm not going to do more candidate work?
Yeah, for sure. So when I hired the guys, we did a lot of training. The two guys that I hired both have over 20 years experience in the industry. So actually a lot of it was them teaching me actually best practice, which
it's often letting go as well, isn't it? Like it's a controlling, as an entrepreneur, we're control freaks often.
I'm interrupting today's episode to talk about our sponsor, Atlas Recruitment CRM. Admin is a massive waste of time for recruiters. And that's why Atlas, the world's first AI-first recruitment platform, is built for modern agencies who don't want to do it. It doesn't only track CVs and calls, it remembers everything. Every email, every interview, every conversation. Instantly searchable, always available, and now it's entering a whole new era. With Atlas 2.0, you can ask anything and it'll deliver. With magic search functionality, you speak to it and it listens. It finds the right candidates using real conversations, not simply look up for keywords. For me, this would be massive because I spend most of my time talking to my CRMs, talking to my emails. I'm just better with voice. Probably why I got into recruitment in the first place. Now, Atlas 2.0 also makes BD easier than ever because they've got an opportunity section where you can track, manage, and grow client relationships powered by generative AI and built right into your workflow. If you need insights and reports, they've got custom dashboards that give you total visibility over your pipeline. And that's not theory. Atlas customers have reported up to 41% EBITDA growth and an 85% increase in monthly billings after adopting the platform. So there's no admin, there's no silos, there's no lost info, nothing but faster shortlists, better hires, and more time to focus on what actually drives revenue. Atlas is your personal AI partner for modern recruiting. Now, don't miss the future of recruitment. Get started with Atlas today and unlock your exclusive RAG listener offer at www.recruitwithatlas.com/the RAG. All right, let's get back to the show.
I think making sure people are culturally aligned as well, so you can trust them to make the right decision and the right call if they're in front of a client or if they're in front of candidates, also really key.
Do you remember when you literally said, I'm not doing it anymore? Was there a day, or can you think back to that?
Yeah, I think it was a day where I was due to play golf actually on a Friday afternoon. I think we invited to some corporate event, and I was just on my phone, and a candidate was pulling out of an interview just as I was about to tee off. And what do? You've got to try and sort out the situation with the client. You've got to sort out the interview, the candidate as well at the same time. But can you pull out of the golf thing that someone set up for you and invited you to? It's just like a real sort of dilemma. And I remember like making that decision. All right, no, I've just got to leave this now. If I've got one job to do, which is to grow the company, to introduce our services to more clients, keep improving our service quality, and I need to have a team of people who are in the office speaking with the candidates and delivering on the roles with consistency, and being an entrepreneur and trying to grow things where you get pulled and pushed all over the place, which is great, which is fun. You get to meet so many amazing people, learn from so many amazing people, but actually doing the day in, day out, you need some real consistency. You need people who are, consistently at their desk, working with the candidates, working with the clients to achieve a result. And certainly haven't looked back since. It's enabled us to grow much more as a business.
Going back then to the growth of your business beyond that. So was the US partner model that we're going to talk about? Was that part of your headspace being free post getting out of delivery in the UK?
Yeah. So I think getting out of that headspace allowed us to offer more services. So I think I talked about board search, some of our communities that we're building, some of the membership models that we have, some of the research that we're doing for clients. Some of the research we're doing now, like I said, is very, very valuable stuff, and having the right people in place. So I've been asked recently to provide some consultancy to a worker who want to do more research, human capital research as part of their offering. But the key thing is getting the right people. So the people I've got doing research are people who want to do research, love the detail, love getting into it. I think where a lot of firms go wrong is they might see research as a path to being a consultant. And to be a good consultant, you need to be on the phone, you need to be building relationships. You're probably not going to have the same skills as someone who loves having 30 tabs open in Excel and going through, line by line detail of what a 5,000 person company org structure looks like. They're two different things.
Yeah.
So getting the right people in the right seats is really key. Expanding service offering so that, you can work with a client and say, look, what's the biggest challenge that you've got on your desk at the moment? And they might say, Nick, our COO is leaving in 2 months. We need to find a new COO. Great. They might say, Nick, we're $1 billion at the moment. We want to be at 3 billion in 2 years' time. We're working on that roadmap. Okay. What is the information that we can provide to you that can help with that? What are the competition doing at those levels? Where are your peers at in terms of their org structure, in terms of their talent? What can we learn from them? What insights can we give you? And that type of work is hugely valuable to them, and just keeps us really close to the clients, because especially at the executive level, clients aren't always hiring C-suite or VP level positions every day of the week, so you've got to be there for them and still provide value. I think the challenge is the value add that we all try and give, completely complementary, that pays off in the long run. It's not always the case. I see that sometimes, and you see some firms that they're always trying to get something for nothing, dangling the carrot of a search or a project in the future. But if you can provide real value that you can actually charge for, and you can run as part of your business model, then you can keep really close to your clients, and you don't need as many clients as you would if you were just being purely transactional.
Yeah. But you said before you've got a partner, you've got a series of partners in the US, right? So they're on a different model. So talk us through where that came from. Was that post you getting out of the delivery that you were like, right, I now need to grow in the US?
Yeah, it came from a number of different thoughts, actually. The biggest challenge I see in search is that a lot of boutique practices of our size, which is one partner with 3 or 4 assistants and building a practice, growing beyond that. So how do you double past that? Do you hire and train up, young grads and train people up? It's very difficult to do on the executive search level. Like we said, you either start them in research or you let them loose on the clients. But, clients don't want to be guinea pigs at that level. And, working with people who, let's face it, in 3 months, they might not even be in recruitment in 3 months. They might be doing something else, traveling or whatever they want to do. The other option is hiring really experienced salespeople. That is just such a huge challenge in itself. The risk that you take on with a big salary, a big budget that you've got to put towards someone, if it doesn't work out, can put a real stress on the business. So we're then looking at, right, well, how else can we grow? You can merge with another practice, so potentially partnering up with other executive search practices. You can look to be acquired by a bigger practice and maybe spin your part of the business into theirs. But it's a real dilemma. And I know, speaking to a lot of different search firm owners, it's like their biggest dilemma. It's like, how do they grow past themselves? And
You said it's like £1 million or $1 million mark.
Yeah.
That typically is the ceiling, right? Where,
And
there's nothing wrong. I mean, that's a good business. If you're running $1 million a year and you're running it profitably, like, 40, 50%, 60% margin, it's a good life. But there's still something in a lot of people to go beyond that. And like you say, there's a ceiling.
And how do you grow past that whilst keeping that profit? So a lot of dilemmas is, right, we can go for growth or we can go for profit. So we could stay really small and keep profit, or we can go for growth. But that growth, you might not see the results of that until you're a certain size or until you exit or have some sort of event. So how do you do both at the same time is a challenge, I think.
Is this what you've tried to do?
Yeah, that's what we're on the road to at the moment. And our model in the US, and I think it lends itself well in the US, very entrepreneurial over there, is we have partners who have their own businesses. They've set up their own businesses and they act under our umbrella. So they have access to all our branding, all our marketing, but really key, they have access to our delivery team as well, research and delivery. So they might be a one-man band, but actually by partnering with us, it's like they're a part of a much bigger business. So to their clients, they can offer lots of different services and they don't have to deliver on those services. There's team members who do that on their behalf. For us, we're seeing that as, if we want to continue to grow profitably, we're de-risking that somewhat. We're not paying large salaries before people are starting to bring in the work. For those partners that we bring on, they get to have an incredibly profitable business because they've almost got no overhead at all. All the overhead is with us and the business. So they're just taking huge percent of the fees that they generate and the work that they do for their clients or we do on their behalf. So they get something that's really profitable. We get something that's profitable. It's probably not as quickly scalable as other methods, but if we want to grow with profit, you've got to do that in a way which means you might have 5 salespeople, one salesperson's knocking it out of the park, a couple of the guys are struggling. Well, it's the sales that the one guy's making is paying for everybody else in the business, paying for all the overhead. How can we flip that on its head so that salesperson gets rewarded for that? And actually, if you're not performing and you're not delivering, you're not getting bailed out by the next team.
And you've not got the monthly overhead of their salaries, so you're not under as much pressure. The only thing you can say is, what is the profile? Are you going for people with an insurance broking background like you and transition them into an exec search, or are you getting an exec search guy that doesn't necessarily want to start their own firm on their own, or a bit of both?
It's a bit of both actually at the moment. So we're split testing actually to what works best. Right. So we've got 2 guys who are absolutely amazing insurance executives, really, really illustrious careers. Both of them actually were candidates for us at some point in their journey. So they're fantastic, really credible people, know everybody in the market and can go and consult with them. Then we got 2 recruiters, and the recruiters have both been working in the insurance space as well. So they know insurance, they know how to recruit. For one of those guys, he really likes the fact that he can go and set a retainer and not have to deliver on it. He just project manages it and builds the relationships. And the other recruiter loves doing the delivery. He's a true 360 deliverer and loves that, but has got no time for doing marketing, has no time for building up, research projects. There's no time for, building communities. So when he's joins us and he works with us, it's not just the searches that he lands, but the continual touch points of some of the other services that we're looking to provide.
How do you split that in the US so that you don't have 2 people competing with each other? Like, is it regional? Is it industry or service line? How have you done that?
Yeah, regional and service line. So we've said, look, this is your license for this type of business and this geography, and anything outside that's also yours, unless we've got a partner who's specialising in that as well. And we've just actually seen a lot of collaboration. So we've got people who have just made a lot of intros to other partners, and they share some of the fees and the revenue like you would in any other recruitment business. If people are employed, still get that. A lot of the feedback that we've got from the partners, because we have weekly sales meetings with them, we have weekly collab calls, we have business planning sessions with them, is that they feel like a remote worker essentially. So they're working as part of the business. It's just they actually own their own practice and their own desk. So we're trying to create the best of both worlds really for them. And it does only really appeal to experienced people who've got those contacts already in the industry.
Yeah,
I think starting out as a rookie would be a bit more challenging. But the way we try to replicate it is like myself. So I'm now a partner of the business, and the business, my practice is run in the same way that we offer for them. I had no recruitment experience when I started things out, and we're getting to a point of $1 million of fees and of billings and of placements, and that's not happened overnight. That's taken 9 years to get to, but we can now shortcut that for a lot of these guys. And all of that initial investment you have in creating your own business, you don't have. You can just straight away start talking to clients, start talking to candidates, and start.
So what's the downside? Because it sounds perfect, right? I think it, from my experience, and feel free to ask, probe me on any of this if you want, but from the people I've interviewed, it does feel like the US market is more set up for that. I think the real estate industry in the US is very similar, isn't it? You get like a brokerage license, you essentially don't paid, you just take the lion's share of commission. So I think the US is more of that kind of American dream, we'll just go and do it. Whereas from people who've tried it in the UK, I think they've struggled to get people to genuinely take that full, risk. And I think there's a guy called Alexander, a company called Alexander Lyons out on the show, and they have a blended model where there's a salary to a certain degree, but then it impacts threshold, and like they just didn't feel like the completely no overhead was realistic over here. So do you agree? And what is the downside, or what challenge have you faced with this model? Because the minute it just sounds amazing.
There definitely must be downside because it doesn't appeal to everyone. We're not trying to appeal to everyone, but we are trying to appeal to people who want to run their own business, but have that infrastructure in place. That definitely works more in the US. I think, like you said, the real estate market, I think lawyers over there as well are often single practitioners operating under a larger brand. But I think we are seeing that model certainly increase more in the UK since the pandemic. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurialism out there. But people still want to be part of something. And one of the guys who works with us, he was working for himself for 20 years, and then he's rolled up into what we're doing, and he just loves the camaraderie and the banter. He's with us for the banter. Right? Now he just enjoys being part of something bigger, like he used to be. He used to be in the office, in having lots of interactions, passing business left and right, speaking to candidates, moving clients over into different service lines. And he gets to have that with us. Whereas, running your own shop on your own, especially if you are clients, candidates, 360, it can be quite a lonely experience. Even if you are talking to people all day, it can be quite a lonely, it can be quite a lonely path, I think, running a solo business, especially in recruitment.
Yeah, agreed. So what we talked about before was you've managed that your profit margins are like over 50% as a business. So what are the levers you're still pulling even though you're growing now? How would you describe like your lens on growth but profit protection?
Service offering. So sitting in front of a client and saying, what do you need? What would be useful? What's your biggest challenge at the moment? And going away and figuring out how we can provide a solution to that. Now, that's got to be in the realms of talent, right? It's got to be something that we're experts in. But I speak to insurance companies every day. I speak to loads of executives, interview people like yourself, on podcasts, and you just got so much information that you can actually share and leverage and use. One of the great things actually about the recruitment industry in general is just how close you get to a business at an early stage. You can, after half an hour or so of talks with a company, you can be sitting in front of their board and they're telling you all their aches and pains and why they couldn't hire their last CEO because of X, Y, Z, and what all the opportunities are there as well. So I think it's a great place to be. But in terms of levers, I think building out as much service offering as you can. So we've got a bench of consultants who go in and do talent advisory, leadership advisory, and saying to clients, like, you don't necessarily need to change your executive team. You don't need to necessarily replace your COO. Maybe he just needs a little bit of coaching, and we can provide that for you. So I think getting to a point with clients where they trust you, that you're not just trying to force them to fill a role or to engage you in a search, I think this is really important. And by having different service offerings, you can truly sit down in front of them on a monthly basis and say, what's happening in your world? How can we help you with that? And
do they not feel like they're just constantly being sold to, though?
No, I don't. Well, I don't actually have to ask them that. They might say something different. But I think when you're genuinely asking what their challenges are and saying, look, who can I introduce you to? What piece of work can we do? How can we help? Can we help? Yeah, right. It might be, we can't help you with that issue. But rather than going there, just going, have you got any jobs? When are you hiring? What's the outlook look like? We're seeing the talent, the internal TA role is changing hugely. And, we work with internal TA teams where, they'll say to us, look, quite honestly, look, we've spent millions of dollars last year on external agency spend. My job is to cut that. And you say, oh, great. That's really, really good to know in our first meeting. Lovely. So
Yeah.
it's nice to meet you as well. But by actually being able to say so, well, okay, look, we can still partner with you with that. So if you've got 20, 30 recs out on at the moment, can we do market mapping for you? Can we do talent mapping? Can we provide insights? Can we do like some of those interviews? Like, what can we do to help you with that mission, rather than just going away going, oh, they're trying to cut agency spend, there's not going to be any work there. How can we still help them?
Is there a risk? Because I'm thinking about someone listening, and I think it's some great ideas. But is there a risk to you've got to have the capability to deliver on these things? When you've only ever delivered people and you're good at that, mm-hmm. Suddenly saying, "Oh, we'll do that, and we'll do that, and we'll do this." There's a risk there. So it's about really having the constant chats to understand maybe 1 to 2, maximum 3 common themes around what you already do, and then slowly but surely working on solutions for each one, rather than just saying we do it, and then, because a lot of recruiters will sell it and then they'll figure it out after, and that there's a lot of risk to your reputation in that.
Yeah, and I think that comes from understanding your clients and keep asking them what their challenges are. And if you can't provide that solution there and then, that's fine. But if you then see it 5-6 times in space of a few months, then there's a challenge there. And it's a great point you make. You've got to make sure that you've got the right people delivering on that, experts in their specialist area, and you're not trying to force a salesperson to do research, and you're not trying to force a researcher to do sales. That's really, really key, and that's definitely something that I've learned over the years, is not just having great people, but having them doing the thing that they're special at and are great at, and how can you help them do more of that? And that's certainly the case where we're at the moment.
So you've got the expanded services around your practice, plus you've got 4 practices growing in the US that can tap into what you've built for your own practice. That's very clever, and that, like, again, I can see where the profit is, because again, you can outsource some of these services, or have someone on a bench. They're not costing you unless you're delivering. Just like the salespeople in the US are not costing you unless they're delivering. So, have you got the capability to keep building this kind of central service model to ensure that all of your all of your practices have got the same, can be catered for. Because if you don't have enough people in the middle, you've kind of got a little bit of a supply and demand issue there, that if they suddenly start selling like wildfire and you then don't have capability, equally, if they don't sell enough and you overhire in essential services, then I guess I don't know if I've asked you a question or I've just talked myself out of it, but I think you get where I'm going here. Like, what's your mindset around that?
Yes, I mean, that's a huge challenge, but I think that's a challenge for any business to have the the capabilities in place as and when you need it. We've leveraged consultants, we've leveraged other people as well. We've got their own businesses in delivery, in search, and there's a lot of people out there. There's some people now who just specialize in talent mapping, and not even providing a long list, but just literally doing searches on LinkedIn. So, there's people out there that you can tap into if you really need it. But, I'm pretty confident that the way that we're seeing the world now with AI, so much of a recruiter's job now can be done through that. And the conversations that we're having with recruiters who want to set up and work with us is, they're worried about a lot of that work being taken away from them. So the discussions that we're having is, well, what can we do so that you've got a service offering which is more than just, the bread and butter or just the transactional side of things? Can you introduce them to forums, to roundtable events? Can you introduce research projects and all the things that if they were on their own, they just wouldn't be able to do if they don't have the jobs on, they've got nothing in terms of revenue or income coming in. So having as many service offerings as possible that are human-centric and are really, really valuable, I think is the way to go. That's the way that we're looking at it. I'd love to get your viewpoint, actually, Sean. You speak to so many search practitioners, recruitment business leaders. How do you see us folk surviving and thriving with AI and all those opportunities that our clients now have?
Well, I think you bang on there. It's a good question. I think what you're doing is really smart at your level. I think it's actually quite dangerous for some people to try and do at their level. So I was at an event last week where that was the advice, think about all the different services that you can offer your customer. And I'm like, but you're in an underperforming team. You're already underperforming anyway. So if you're already coming from a position of fear, throwing some more stuff at it, I don't think it's the solution. I think it's about, if you haven't got your bread and butter of finding talent for the companies, like organized and consistent, throwing 2 or 3 or 4 new services, I think is a surefire way to slow everything down. I don't get that vibe from you. I think you probably had the opposite, where you've hit capacity, you know what you're doing, and you're thinking, how do we, because there's only a few roles a year per client, perhaps we do need to stay close. I get yours. Whereas in a more contingent setting, which is more where I operate, I think it's about really honing in on the talent, probably being a bit more exec search in your approach than being pure contingent, because there's always going to be people required for companies, I believe. And it's really understanding from your clients, from the candidate community, where those roles are, where the future roles are going to be, and aligning yourself to a future market rather than a past market. So it comes back to the same thing. It's about having better quality conversations, regular conversations. This is my biggest takeaway this year, right? Recruiters, founders, small business owners don't have enough conversations with people. Like, my diary is absolutely smack rammed full every single day, right? 50% of the time. 50% of the time I'm thinking, I'm planning, I'm creating. If I did 100% of the time pure calls, my business would be, I'd make a lot of money now, but I think I'd be dead in 2 years because I'm never thinking about next year. Right. So I think as a founder, if you've got the luxury of having a couple of people around you, I think you have to have some time for thinking, for strategy, for development. But by God, you've got to fill that the other time.
80-20, yeah.
You've got to be on those calls. You've got to be meeting people. You've got to be having those conversations. And too many people, when I ask them, how many calls do you actually have a week? And they're like, 2, 4. I'm like, I do that in an afternoon every day, every single day of the week. I think I've had 6 today before this.
Yeah.
And I love it. I get energy from it. I don't see that as I would, if you could just fill my diary up every day and I didn't have to do any of the other stuff, I'd probably take it because I love it. But genuinely, the more conversations you have, the more you will spot the opportunity if you're good, if you can sniff it. The more you'll be in front of the right people, the more you'll pivot and shift. But until you're consistently understanding the people that are required, I don't think it's smart to think about ancillary services. I think you've nailed the first, and now you're already.
I think you're right. I think you got to max out on where you are in terms of search and recruiting, then expanding with that client as to what else you can do for that client. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about LinkedIn, right? You know, you've worked with us in the past and been through my training. You get it, and you've got a great brand. You've got a podcast. Like the amount of people I meet who want to, all they care about is AI and cold outreach and DMs, in-mail approaches, and I'm like, you've got 15,000 people on LinkedIn. What are you doing with that? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, are you speaking to them? Are you producing content for them? Are you following up? Are you booking calls? Like, how valuable do you see your LinkedIn network? Like, do you see that as a genuine revenue generating asset that you have?
LinkedIn's incredible because you're building your own personal and business website for all your target customers and candidates, and you can make it exactly how you want to make it. You can make your own perception. You can make your own authority building. It's an amazing tool. And yeah, anybody who's not leveraging that clearly should have too much work that they're delivering on for their clients to be able to do that.
Genuinely. That's the bit, isn't it? It's like ancillary services come at a capacity point. You know, AI integration, AI implementation, I'm a massive believer of it. We're selling these services now. But I think you've got to be at a point where you're already at a capacity. If you're doing it to solve you're not busy. You're not. You're coming from a different angle here, you know. Yeah. And I always say AI without a brand is noise. Like you implement an AI with insurance search and your podcast and your name and your reputation, and being able to do more. That's another way in which your practice is going to go from 7 figures to multiple 7 figures per 5 people or whatever. I genuinely believe that. But when you've got no name, no reputation, and you're thinking, well, I'm just going to spam 100,000 emails out this month. I mean, good luck. You're going to burn more data than you're going to get back. The wins will be short term, and the long term effect is you'll be gone. So, I love the way you're doing it. I think you not everyone listening has had the time and inclination to go retained, and I think you've done an incredible job there. And I think the way you've pivoted in the US and you're keeping your costs low, I think is super, super smart as well. So here's my final question for you, right? You're 40 years old, 50% profit margins. I don't need to go into the exact numbers, but I can work out the kind of numbers you've got at the end of a year. What are you doing it for? What's the goal personally? Like, you got 2 young children. What is your future that you get excited by? That this money that you're generating, all this profit that you're accumulating, what's it going to go towards?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I wish I could give you an answer which is super enlightening, but I can't. All I want to do is just keep testing myself and just seeing how far I can push myself. And if that is within executive search and recruiting for the next 20 years, it will be there. If it's the skills and expertise that I've built up and the connections that I've built up over these years and adapt now into something else, potentially bigger and better, that could be on the cards as well. So it's just always, for me, it's about pushing myself as an individual and seeing what I can do. I think I got to a point quite early on where I had a desk where I was, billing well, clients, candidates, great. And then it's like, right, how can I push myself to lead a team? It's really difficult. I've never managed people before. How do you go about doing that? That was then the next point in my journey of how can I lead others? How can I train people so that they're better than I am at doing the job? And now it's about, right, what additional services and how do we grow in a profitable way? How do I hold a conversation with I've just come off the call, CFO of AIG, who's CFO AIG during the financial crisis when they got bailed out by the American government.
Wow.
He was at the coalface at the White House and at the Federal Reserve. And, that's stress, that's pressure during those times, compared to that, what we're doing is...
Are you saying that was a more complex conversation than you're having with me, Nick? Is that what you're suggesting? I don't let him.
Yeah,
I don't believe it. I don't believe
I
it.
think it was a similar level actually. It was like CFO of
Yeah.
AIG, straight to
Yeah.
Sean Anderson at Hoxo.
Founder of Foxno. Same
Yeah.
same gig.
I did tell him I was meeting you afterwards. He was very
Yeah,
impressed.
and he was like, I've seen him on LinkedIn. It's fine. Knew exactly what circles you were networking in. So, but what you did say before is important that you've not brought back there is you decided what role you wanted, right? You've constantly reinvented yourself to get into a role that I think you're motivated by. You know, your brain's pumping, you're firing by. You're delegating things that you think you've conquered, and you're trying to get better. And that, to me, I'm very similar to you. Like, we're 9 people. We were 39. I hated my life. We're 9 people now. It's miles better. But I'm constantly going, what part of the job do I need to do and do I want to do? And which parts can I offload and delegate? And you get it wrong, and you take your foot off too soon on things, and you have to bring it back. But it's a challenge that's good fun. And too many people are trapped in roles they don't want to do. You know, founders of businesses where they do every single thing, you know, and they hate it, and they're not true business owners because they're doing everything. Do you still enjoy that, like, retain a pitch search process, like getting the client to agree? Is that something you still enjoy?
I love it. And I disagree with you slightly. I don't think it's reinventing ourselves or reinventing myself. I think it's reinventing the world around us and the business that we have to actually grow with you and enable you to do what you want to do within business. So I think there's a subtle difference there.
Yeah, I get you. But I'm thinking more just like what you do all day keeps changing. Like you hold on to the bits you love, maybe do more of them, and then you can move things off, right? So are you still the main, like, business developer, and you sign the contracts for that practice that was you?
Yeah, along with our partners in America. Yeah, for sure.
But that original practice is still predominantly you, right?
Yeah.
Which is, you must enjoy it.
Yeah, I love it. And, you know, speaking to amazing people, the podcast that we launched, you know, we've had CEOs of insurance businesses from around the world. It's just a pleasure speaking to them and asking them about how they got to where they are and what insights they have, and just learning from them and building relationships with people that you'd never expect to, you know, when you start out. But going back to your question, I think at the start was like, when you set up your business, what was the vision? And I think the vision really for me was building something where I can do what I want to do personally and professionally, and keep evolving the business so you don't get stuck in the stuff that you don't enjoy doing and you're not good at, and it's not your special sauce. But once you've worked out what you're good at, the rest of it you need to outsource, you know, either to other companies or to your team and build that. And I think that's really important for sure.
100%. And but there's no big grand plans personally, like, you know, property investments, or have you got anything that you're doing that keeps you honest outside of work with the capital you generate?
Not a huge amount. Honestly, I'm not a particularly materialistic person. You know, I want to provide for my family. We're fortunate; we've got a great place we live at. We've got a lot already, but we've got some plans to doing some different things with our lives, you know, outside of work. And you know, maybe if we come back on a podcast in a couple of years, I'll share a bit more about that. But no, professionally, it's about doing the very best job that we can for our clients, and that's not just talking about that and around, but I can't remember the podcast I listened to recently. I think it was Joe Rogan with Matthew McConaughey, and they were talking about service, but service can be quite a selfish thing. So the more you serve, it actually makes you feel good, and that, you know, that's selfish. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I think the better quality you do, the higher sort of echelons you can push yourself to, test yourself to. You know, I've seen your journey, Sean, on LinkedIn. I think you're a great sharer at, you know, right, I had to turn up at this event also. I'm speaking in front of 200 people. You know, you could have just stayed in bed that day and said, no, I don't want to do that. But you just don't grow as a leader or as a business person if you don't challenge yourself. And I think if you can just keep doing what you enjoy and keep pushing yourself, yeah, then the opportunities come. And how do you then maximize that is by having a really good team around you who you trust to deliver on what you say you're going to do for your clients.
Nick, we're out of time, mate. I do appreciate you. I really, really enjoyed your angle on things. It's a very different model you've got than a lot of the people I've interviewed. So I think there'll be a lot of benefits for people to listen to this. If there's anyone listening who wants to reach out to you, I'm assuming you'll give them some time if they drop you a LinkedIn note. Is that okay?
Absolutely, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Very
and
happy.
I'd love to have you on again in the future, and we'll talk about the evolution of the model and what you've been doing outside of work and everything in between. Good luck, mate. Keep up the great work, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah, likewise, Sean, and thank you as well. I mean, your podcast is the best podcast, you know, in recruitment, and I think back to those dark days during the pandemic, and it was literally yourself, a few other guys, just kept us all saying, recruiting business leaders. So hats off to you, and you know, thanks for everything that you do as well.
Appreciate it. My pleasure.
Thanks again for listening to today's episode of the RAG podcast. If you haven't already, please do subscribe wherever you listen to this show, as the more subscribers we get, the more people will listen and the more recruitment owners we can help. As a recruitment founder, you must know that things are changing. AI is everywhere. Cold outreach is getting harder, and job boards, well, they're not what they used to be. But personally, despite the negativity, I believe the future is the greatest opportunity of our lifetime in recruitment, because for the first time ever, a founder with 5 recruiters with a clear niche and the right systems can build the kind of influence, reach, and profitability that used to take 500 recruiters and a global office network. The agencies that are winning right now aren't necessarily the biggest, but they are the most visible, the most trusted, and the ones building inbound demand. At Hoxo, we're working with clients who are running multiple 6 and 7 figures in net profit, outperforming the negative noise and headlines. So, to explain what these guys are doing, I've created a brand new free masterclass video for RAG listeners. In this video, it's less than 10 minutes long. I'm going to show you what these businesses are doing differently from the rest. So the link's in the description. Fill in the form, watch the video, and see exactly how this system that these clients are using could work for your agency. Good luck.